So I just watched the 6th episode of WandaVision, and while I still have a lot of questions and the list of mysteries refuses to get smaller, I really wanted to touch on this show in a quick video explaining why I think it's the perfect way for Marvel to start off Phase 4, not just for super fans of the MCU, but also people who tend to steer clear of these movies and shows in general, and of course anyone who falls in between those categories. While originally WandaVision wasn't supposed to be the first thing that came out of Phase 4, it was actually 5th after Black Widow, Falcon and the Winter Soldier, The Eternals, and Shang-Chi. After multiple delays, the release order was shifted to instead lead with WandaVision, and I think that ended up being a really happy accident because to me, this show gives me both a sigh of relief and an air of excitement surrounding Phase 4 as a whole. Phase 4 is weird in that it's coming hot off the heels of some of the most critically acclaimed and commercially successful films Marvel has ever put out, and yet the nature of those two films, being the culmination of so many past storylines and ultimately resulting in the resolutions of so many long-standing conflicts and characters, makes it feel like the MCU almost has to convince us of its right to exist further. We still have characters we love in this universe, but at least to me it feels like Marvel had to work hard to justify anything past Phase 3 from an artistic perspective. Obviously financially it makes sense why they keep making these movies, but are we just rolling towards a desolate franchise that becomes a shell of its former self after retreading the same ideas over and over? I got even more concerned once we started getting more information on what exactly the future of Marvel had in store, and it was revealed that they'd still be making 3 movies a year and now adding on multiple TV shows that were more core to the MCU than the Netflix stuff that they had previously, which could be taken as a complete standalone entity. It was really starting to feel like that oversaturation of superhero content, something that people have been claiming for years is going to get people to lose interest in these shows and movies, might actually be starting to catch up with Marvel. On top of that, once I heard that there was a show in the works called WandaVision, I had to roll my eyes. They really canceled Daredevil on Netflix, an absolutely incredible show, and replaced it with a show about 2 characters I had very little interest in and couldn't possibly envision being interesting enough to carry an action TV drama or whatever the hell it was going to end up being. And then the trailer came out and I realized, oh yeah, the people that make these decisions are way smarter than I am. WandaVision looked weird as shit. It was nothing like I assumed it would be. It was this weird sitcom parody show that took 2 characters that weren't all too well known for being goofy or fun and dialing those exact things to 300. And if all that wasn't weird enough, this all seemed to be canon and taken place in the main MCU reality, which raised a lot of questions like, what? How? Why? And am I attracted to Vision? Being a good ways into the show, I can definitely say it has so far matched and in many ways exceeded my expectations. The weird goofy homages have been awesome, but the mystery and world building has been done way better than it has any right to. I feel like even the moments where the show wants you to relax and enjoy its sitcom elements has you on the edge of your seat over-analyzing lines and wondering when the facade is gonna break. Now, while that's cool and all, and the show is overall incredible, why do I think it's the best way to start off the whole phase? Well, that has a lot to do with one of the main complaints that usually crops up when it comes to the MCU. The fact that all the movies feel the same. I want to actually defend the MCU on this particular point. While I don't think these movies end up being wildly different from one another on a broad scale, I think they shake things up a lot more than other big franchises. And I actually think that Kevin Feige and the guys over at Marvel have done a really impressive job walking the line between creating things that are commercially successful and creating things that don't stagnate. And they tend to improve movie by movie from an artistic standpoint. Originally, in the first phase of Marvel movies, almost everything was pretty by the book and appealed to the lowest common denominator. They knew they didn't have enough resources, enough of a brand name, enough of a fan base in the beginning to start off making crazy shit from the get-go. So they played it pretty safe and realized that if people were occasionally successful when they made bad movies based on characters people loved, all they had to do was make decent movies based on characters people loved and they'd be well off. Once they got that ball rolling, it would have been really easy to continue the trend of samey, decent superhero movies carried solely by their big name characters, but instead Marvel decided to get a bit weirder with it. All of a sudden the vibe and the plot of the new Captain America was heavily inspired by spy thrillers instead of straightforward superhero movies. We went from Thor trying to justify magic as just complex science so we wouldn't hurt our little puny heads trying to suspend our disbelief in 2011 to a space family comedy movie starring a talking raccoon in 2014. Phase 3 got even weirder. We had hidden highly advanced cities on Earth that basically hid themselves like Camp Half-Blood. All of a sudden the quantum realm and the multiverse were very real things in this universe, and the plots got darker and less good guys win all the time. Thor had to destroy his entire planet in order to have any semblance of victory, and the Avengers movies ended with Thanos destroying half the universe in the first one, and 2 main characters of the whole franchise dying, and 1 growing old and retiring in the second one. With all that said, I think that even though looking at the MCU from beginning to end, we see a clear change in how inventive and unorthodox its movies are, in real time, it felt like those changes happened slowly, and the basic structure of these movies, especially if you take the first 2 Avengers to be basically one super movie, do follow a similar pattern. Fast forward to the present though, and all of a sudden we have a show where we explore a pocket reality in our own reality that is projecting itself in the form of an old sitcom to anyone who's picking up its frequencies. The concept of a superhero sitcom is definitely interesting and new, and if that was all that WandaVision was, it would seem like Marvel was continuing its slow expansion of what's possible in its universe. But the thing is, that's not all the show is. There's clearly a dramatic and universe-shifting mystery behind all of this stuff as well. And because of that, instead of this being a pretty slow expansion of the possible, it's basically shooting a bullet through the possible and showing us that basically everything is free game now. The MCU has proven its worth to the highest degree as a financial juggernaut. It has a rabid fan base that are willing to give everything they put out a fair chance. And instead of using that power to make it garbage cash grabs, they seem to be trying to genuinely improve the diversity of their catalog and let their imaginations run wild with crazy ideas. WandaVision is most likely going to have a major impact on where the MCU goes from here. Again, I haven't seen the last 3 episodes since they're not out yet, but I think it's a fairly safe bet to say that this show will result in some multiverse shenanigans, and there's a good chance it already has. While that's great from the standpoint that we're now introduced to a giant element that could result in a ton of different potential storylines, I think the bigger deal is that Marvel is willing to be this weird with the show, and it makes me think that instead of the multiverse being a plot device for convenience sake and as a desperate attempt to try and shake up the established formula, the storylines that come out of this shift will be adventurous, out of the box, and just overall incredibly different to what we've seen from this universe until now. Their willingness to also steer clear from action for this long, maybe even for the whole show, who knows, makes me think that we could actually get shows or movies in the near future that would be much more akin to character studies or psychological thrillers or any number of interesting genres instead of confining the franchise to action blockbusters. If we look back at the MCU in 10 years and we no longer see it as an action movie franchise and instead as an actual universe of not just hundreds of characters but also dozens of genre-defying storylines with pockets of dark, melancholic properties sitting directly adjacent to popcorn movies and right underneath long, in-depth looks into unique characters, I think that it'll be something really special, and I think that WandaVision proves that all of that may actually be possible. I hope this isn't a false start, but I'm really excited for what the future of this franchise holds. Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. I always feel weird saying this. I don't know ever how to properly say it, but like, comment, subscribe, and that would be really helpful. It helps get some of my stuff seen, so that would be super helpful if you guys would do that. If you have any suggestions for me on how to improve some of this stuff, that would also be really appreciated if you guys could leave that down in the comments. I'm just trying to get better at this kind of stuff, and so any constructive criticism, very appreciated. My next video is probably going to be on Little Nightmares 2, but to be fair, I said that in my last video that my next video was going to be about Community, so who knows what my brain will do, but I'll see you guys then regardless. Peace.